All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 1 minute after the hour. Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Kristen Davis with Pipefy. I'm a product evangelist here with Pipefy, and joining me today is Paul Otto, who's an account executive. For our agenda today, I am going to be going through just a quick introduction into procurement, automation, and orchestration is what kind of our topic is today, but I'll be beginning with drivers and challenges specifically within procurement and purchasing processes, and then go through kind of a quick overview of what it looks like to transition from manual to automated processes within purchasing, a little bit of background on Pipefy, and then Paul will be doing a very comprehensive demonstration of an overview of a procurement purchasing process and all of the subcomponents that go with it, all of the moving pieces and parts. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. Sorry, my slide is not going forward. So a couple of things just to think about with regards to why procurement. Why is procurement so critical? And why is this such a critical process to begin to think about automating within an organization? Because it often can be very manual with a lot of moving parts today. Ultimately, procurement and analytics from procurement can have the greatest impact on this process. So organizations are planning to use data for cost optimization, process improvement, and management reporting. And why, right? So within the procurement process, it's really actually a very strategic function that can enable business excellence. Now, whether you're a product company or not a product company, you know that spend is happening within your purchasing process. And in order to kind of reduce that spend or kind of hide or kind of get a handle on some of that spend, we really want to turn this into more of a strategic function to enable overall financial and business excellence. And a data-driven approach is going to actually drive innovation and reduce uncertain decision-making. So we'll talk a little bit about how we capture data and how we can drive those data-driven decisions that need to be made as part of the improvement of the process and the overall governance and oversight of the process. And then really procurement as a whole, just like a lot of the kind of operational departments, are really striving to become more strategic and better business partners. And one way that procurement can do that is actually by providing spend predictability. So really partnering with the finance team and thinking about budgeting and kind of overall spend planning. And with better oversight of procurement, you're actually able to better partner with finance and make that spend predictability happen. Some of the challenges that procurement faces today in terms of being able to kind of accomplish this strategic effectiveness within the business are invisible spend, process inefficiencies, and no process or data continuity. And with the invisible spend, this is kind of a big one as we look out into the market. Just this lack of centralized visibility is resulting in unmanaged spending. And what that means is that if you don't have an approval process, if you don't have governance and oversight in kind of a central location for your purchasing process, then folks out in the business are simply sending you an invoice. I ordered this, please pay it. So accounts payable is getting involved rather than procurement. And then generally speaking, for any process inefficiencies, there's going to be errors and delays. There's going to be a lot of back and forth and manual communication. There's going to be a lot of manual work that actually prevents this purchasing and procurement team from becoming a more strategic and analytics driven team that's able to drive some of that spend predictability and be that better business partner. So really just thinking about some of the challenges with the big pieces and moving parts across this very complex process. And then no process and data continuity is, again, kind of the multiple tools that you might be using today to manage this process. And some of those systems might be accounting systems or your procurement systems or even your ERP systems, where you have a lot of data and process being managed within those, but not all of the data and all of the process. And so wanting to think about this concept of managing the process from end to end and also managing the data from end to end. So that would get rid of kind of the duplicate manual work and the duplicate data entry that's happening. And today, and this is the visual of what that can look like, right? So just thinking about what a manual purchase process could look like, really what we're highlighting here is just all the moving pieces and parts. So you have a lot of different teams and people involved within the process. You have a lot of manual tools and a lot of activity happening within those manual tools. You have lack of visibility within spreadsheets and things like that. So just thinking about, lots of stops and starts, lots of caution in terms of potential errors that might be happening, and lots of tools that are being used within the toolkit to get this process automated. When you are able to actually centralize and streamline this process in something like Pipefy, which we're going to show you today, really it's all about just moving that process along as quickly as possible, minimizing the handoffs, and automating the communication and the approval activities so that once a request gets submitted, it's automatically moved to each of the different teams that are going to be involved in each of the different players. And now that you have this in a centralized repository, you're actually going to then get the visibility and control with dashboards and things of that nature. So you'll be able to set up what your key performance indicators are, measure those, and then report on those to drive, again, that strategic partnership, as well as the data-driven and analytics-driven decision-making. Not to mention that you're then kind of providing oversight on spend and helping to get some of that maverick spend under control. Within Pipefy, what this looks like is very similar. So this is kind of that was sort of the 5,000-foot view of the purchase process, and this takes us back to really any process and thinking about within your departments, what application stack are you currently using to manage some of the core processes, and then how Pipefy can become this business automation and orchestration platform where you have inputs coming in. So things like the request for a purchase request. It could actually be initiated in another system. So it could come from an ERP or a procurement system like Coupa. And then certainly it could come from email, spreadsheets, et cetera. So some type of automated input or manual input from a user gets entered into Pipefy, and kind of then the process orchestration begins. So coming in through our portal, taking it into an automated process view with visibility and controls kind of across the step-by-step process that happens in a Kanban board. And then once you're managing that workflow, you can identify the automation rules, all of the approvals that need to happen. You can automate communication via your communication channels like Slack or Teams, or via email, which is more standard. And then ultimately, if there are any integrations necessary throughout the steps within this process, which Paul will show you today, you can define and drive those as well. So a perfect example would be sending data to your SAP system or your procurement system, or sending a document out for approval, like a contract. So that could get routed to DocuSign and then come back into the Pipefy process to continue moving that process forward. And ultimately, what you get as a result of that centralized repository is real-time reporting and dashboards and governance control in this centralized process repository. And why is this necessary? So I sort of did this a little bit backwards than we usually do. But when you think about a lot of processes within organizations, your core processes are often covered through your central systems. So your ERPs, your customer relationship management systems, and HR certainly have their own systems. And then there are vertical applications that support departmental specific processes like Workday or Coupa for procurement, so Workday for HR, Coupa for procurement. And just think about, there's a lot happening within these systems, but there's also a lot not happening within these systems. So about 65% typically of business and critical business processes are managed without technology, meaning they are not supported by sort of your core applications. 65%. And that's resulting in lack of governance and oversight, no ability to measure, that manual and duplicate data entry we talked about, and also in something like where you have and need spend oversight, manual and untracked approvals. So where Pipefy comes in is to become that structure, that kind of take that unstructured systems of record and become the comprehensive process orchestration engine that can capture the unstructured data, but feed it into your structured systems. And these are called the long tail processes because they are typically within IT, a backlog and backlog and backlog of work that has been requested of IT to automate, and it simply doesn't happen. So that's what we're going to talk to you a lot about today within Pipefy. And then just thinking about, we're talking specifically today and showcasing for you our purchasing process, but this is happening across multiple departments in the organization. So we're going to talk about finance and procurement with the procure to pay, order to cash, record to report, finance help desk, accounts payable, accounts receivable, etc. But we also do a lot with human resources, with recruiting and onboarding and just general HR request management, customer service, marketing, sales, etc. So these long tail processes exist across an organization and are typically being managed in these manual and kind of point solutions way. Lastly, just to give you a little credibility on Pipefy, we are actually a leader in the G2 business process management quadrant. So this is us over here, which we of course just want to give you that validation from kind of the marketplace that we can practice what we preach, and we're going to show you that in the demo today. And that's all I've got for you for an intro. So I'm going to stop sharing and hand my screen over to Paul. And just so you guys know, while Paul's sharing his screen and getting going, Paul has a long history in software. He's worked extensively with project portfolio management, and now here at Pipefy is excited to be in the business process automation and orchestration space. So with that, Paul, I'll hand it over to you. And we cannot hear you. Paul, are you there?
Yeah. Hey, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Do appreciate your time. What I'm going to do here is I want to show you the workflow. I want to shrink this down a little bit so it's a little bit more manageable. And there we go. So I'm going to start off really kind of talking about the workflow here. So as Kristen mentioned, working with a process, looking at ways to automate and streamline is critical for operational efficiencies. And I'm going to show you a very complex workflow process that's going to connect various pipes in Pipefy. It's going to connect an ERP system. It's going to connect with Slack. It's going to connect with DocuSign. And this is just going to give you a picture of what that flow looks like. So once a request is submitted in a Pipefy, a card is created, the buyer is assigned to review. If it is complete information, they'll be passed on to the manager who will approve. And then from there, a quotation will get developed by a supplier. Now, if the supplier is not on the approved vendor list, and say that buyer wanted to put forth another vendor, it can go within this workflow. We can go through an approval process where the approver can be approved and then contracted through DocuSign. And then for finance, for complete approval of the finance department, when that takes place, then it continues to move on and to where a purchase process will be kicked off. Well, it'll actually connect up with NetSuite, which will handle the continuation of the purchase process. And then at the end, we'll be delivering, tracking the delivery. And then from there, there will be collect a NPS score at the end. So what I'm going to go here first off and show you the interface for this particular finance group of applications that we've developed. And these here are going to be the 5. There's going to be accounts payable tied into the use case, complex use case. There's going to be also quotations, NPS score, and supplier vendor registration. So it's going to tie all these in a process that's going to be fairly streamlined and efficient and automated. So from here, I'm going to kick off the process through a portal. This can be external, internal, or it could be sent out as a web link. So you have the flexibility of capturing all the data that you need before you kick off the process. Oftentimes, when something is getting ordered, there's missing information, you can force the fields to capture that data. In fact, you can't submit it until it's filled out. I started this already just for the sake of saving some time. I'm going to go ahead and add a product. This is tied to a database within Pipefy. It could also be tied to your ERP system where you're managing all your products and vendors. So that flexibility for connecting to those databases are easily set up within Pipefy. So I'm going to go ahead and say I want to order a MacBook. I'm going to go ahead and say quantity 1. From there, I'm going to go for a delivery date. I'd like to have it by the end of the month. And save, and submit. So a couple things are happening here. One, I'm going to get an email where I can actually track this, which is pretty cool. Let me see if it's come in yet. A little bit slow here. Okay, so I can track this process, and I can go in and pop this open, and then I can go further in and find out where it is in the process. Now, you don't have to set this up, but if you choose to want to have this sort of extra level of service where that requester can see where it is in the process, it is a nice feature. So the card was created. I'm going to refresh the screen here. And Kristen is here. So on the left side of the card is all the data that we captured. On the right side is going to be the activities that we need to do for this particular phase for analysis. I'm going to assign a buyer. I'm going to give Bill Gates a new job since he's been out of work for a while. It's already going to pull in the dollar amount for that order. It's already tied to the system. And I'm also going to use Ned as our manager for further approval. I'm also going to put some level of urgency on this. And then from there, is this request in compliance? Yes. From there, a couple of things are going to happen. One, I'm going to be, as a manager, I'm going to be pinged on Slack, and I'm going to have the card link if I want to get all the information. I see the requester is Kristen Davis, the date, and I'm going to go ahead and move forward and approve. So from there, I'm going to go back in and see where we are in the flow. Now, we've already been approved by the manager, so the card just moved over to quotation. From quotation, Bill Gates is assigned as a buyer. I'm going to create a record here actually, I found a new vendor where I can get a really good price on that Mac Airbook. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new vendor. I'm going to call it G2. From there, add new. Fill out the information. I'm not going to do all this just for the reason it's going to probably make you go crazy. But I do want to have the email in there for further process. And type of technology, yeah, I'll just say approved. No, we're not approved yet because this is a new vendor. So I'm going to go ahead and create that record. And then from there, I'm going to go ahead and put the delivery date. And then I'm going to click this here. When I click this, it's going to send me the supplier a registration form to fill out. And I'm going to go ahead and click that. Supplier registration. And I'm going to close out on this. And I should get that in my email. From there, oh, this will be the quotation. I'll put this up through. So what I'm going to do with the quotation is I'm going to go ahead and submit the quote. The supplier registration will be the next step after this. So I'm sorry about the confusion, but this is G2. We'll go ahead and put the quote in. Submit. We'll go back in the use case. I can see our selection. All right. So from here, I'm going to go up, pull up G2. I see it's not approved. I'm going to give a couple of reasons why it should be. Hey, I got a best relationship, best price. I'm going to go ahead and upload the quote again. From there, I'm going to put in the amount. And these can be automatically loaded. We would just tweak it a little bit. And from here, I'm put an estimation date. And then this next phase here, it's going to go in. Because it's not approved, it's going to go in for waiting for approval. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. Go over here. I'm going to see that in my email, I'm going to email to register. And I'm going to click this link. So again, all this automation that's going on is creating a very structured path to get the purchasing process through and really minimizing all of the manual processes that Kristen was talking about earlier. So it really drives efficiencies. It saves a lot of time. It becomes more automated. It has much more governance around it. So all these things, affect the operational efficiencies within the company. It saves money, it saves time, and it's just a really good way to go. So I'm going to go ahead and put the G2 in here. I'm not going to fill all this out, but I want my email in because there's further stuff to do. I'm going to submit. I'm going to go back in. Then I'm going to see awaiting new supplier, and I want to make sure. I want to just double check where I'm at here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hit here. Okay, now this over here is where the connection into other pipes are, where we're going to have further processes, because we do have a quotation pipe. We also do have a supplier registration process pipe for maybe that's outside of this purchase process that we have, where we're going to be working on other vendors that may not be in a direct line with an order that we're taking. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kind of continuate the process in these other pipes. And here I'm going to review. And what it's going to do is going to go into the pipe and show B12. We'll go ahead and click that. Wait a minute, that's not the one I want. Pending. Yeah. Let's go back into that. See where we are, Kristen. G2. There we go. All right. So I'm going to move this along the process here. Well, I'm going to go ahead and jump in here with the registration approval. Not sure what happened there. This is a demo environment. Not everything works perfect. All right. Finance approval. Move on to purchasing. We go back into the pipe. See where she is. Okay. So she's moved along. We're in purchasing. Now this is where NetSuite comes in and they issue a purchase order. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is load up the purchase order. Date. Let's move this out of here. All right, then from here, I'm going to go ahead and click this. This is going to go take us to the accounts payable pipe. From here, I'm going to go for approval. I'm going to assign an approver. And then approve yes. I'll go on the payment. From there, what is the payment method? Bank transfer. I'm just going to go ahead and say paid at this point, for the sake of time. I'm going to go back into the pipe. And then we are going to see where she is at that point. So we're at delivery. Again, very complex, working with 4 other different pipes, total 5. And just, again, automating the process, making it clean, smooth, and saving time and capturing all this data. So I'm going to go ahead. Alicia is going to go ahead and sign her to this here for responsibility of delivery. Was it delivered? Yes. Was a product delivered as requested? Yes. And then down here, I'm going to go ahead and hit product delivered. Okay. So from here, I should get an email that will give me an NPS survey. And I can go ahead and do this. This is where it's kind of cool for the requester to have some input on the process. And from here, I can go ahead and say, yeah, it was good for supplier grade, create our purchase process. Hey, 5, submit, and then we're done. So that is the process. Now, a lot of working pieces, a lot of interesting things going on. Again, all about streamlining and automating the processes to create those operational efficiencies, making sure nothing falls through the crack, being able to integrate into the various systems for that additional productivity, from contracting to ERP interface integration to Slack. A lot of people do all their work in Slack, and we'd love to have notifications when something is up for approval. I can go ahead and easily do it in Slack and approve. And all these things can be done easily with a no-code solution, which we are. So you can have really fast time to value, get you up and going, and really delivering value with complex systems. Or they can be not so complex. If you're all working in spreadsheets and manual paper documents, and you want to not necessarily integrate, but maybe down the road integrate into other systems that you might need to, we can support that as well. We can be an end-to-end solution for a particular type of process. But we see in mid-sized enterprise level companies, we kind of are filling the gaps in between those core systems and vertical systems that aren't able to handle the complete process. And we find that, as Kristen mentioned before, there's a lot of that work that is being done manually. And that's an area where companies can really optimize their efforts in improving efficiencies. So we're almost coming up to the hour. We got about 3 minutes left. Kristen, did you want to add anything more after this? I appreciate everybody sitting through this, and I hope it was helpful. You're on there we go.
Thanks, Paul. I thought that was a great overview. We don't have any questions in the chat. We would typically move into Q&A right now.
Yeah. I
am going to go ahead and start one poll for our audience. And I'll give you guys just a few minutes to fill that out. And we will see what happens with that. So give it about 10 more seconds. And then I just want to add a couple of things. I think that process shows you what true process orchestration looks like if you think about all the moving pieces and parts. And then I didn't mention in my overview, but Paul did, is just this concept of the complexity of setup is really low, right? So you have a complex process, but to get it orchestrated through Pipefy is really through this no-code citizen application development platform that allows process owners to really set that up themselves with our help, of course. But the idea is that you're not utilizing your IT organization, you're not programming anything, you're just defining these key automations and these key decision activities, as well as the integrations with email, with Slack, and ultimately with NetSuite, which would use an integration platform to drive and orchestrate that process. So your process is being driven, your approvals are being driven, your communication is being driven, and your integrations are all being driven with this really kind of simple to set up no-code application platform. So that's really so you saw a lot of the power of Pipefy today that Paul made look really easy. But just think about all the moving pieces and parts of that very complex process that we were able to then kind of take into multiple steps, but also just moving across a lot of different applications and a lot of data moving across different applications. So really, really, really powerful, made to look easy. With that, I think we are ready to wrap up. So thanks everybody for attending. We appreciate your time today. Hope everyone has a great rest of their week, and we will see you soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you.